The sun is just beginning to dip, casting a golden light over the sparkling water as I step onto the gravel driveway. The laughter of 100 guests rings in the air, the clink of champagne glasses mingling with the soft hum of a summer evening. Conrad stands at the edge of the dock, bottle raised high, his voice booming across the yard. "Ladies and gentlemen, here it is, our silver promise." The crowd erupts into applause as he smashes the bottle against the gleaming hull of the boat. Champagne spraying in a golden arc. Vivica stands beside him, her smile wide and practiced, eyes gleaming with the satisfaction of a perfect performance. "We christen thee the Silver Promise," she says, her voice carrying over the applause. Each word as smooth as silk. I feel my stomach twist as I watch them, standing there like the golden couple, the image of wealth and power. My eyes drift across the crowd. And there he is, Ronan, standing by the buffet table. His hand shakes around a drink, the other at his side. A flicker of discomfort in the way he shifts his weight from foot to foot. At 27, he still looks so young in this light, so fragile. He catches my gaze for a split second before quickly looking away, like he's hoping I didn't see the truth written in his eyes. The truth that he's already made his choice. I don't need to ask him. He knows. He chose the boat. He chose this life. He chose to let them take away his chance at real treatment. I feel my pulse quicken as I push through the crowd, the soft grass sinking beneath my heels. Conrad sees me approaching, and his face shifts instantly, the false cheer slipping into something colder, more guarded. "Elise," he calls out, his voice too loud, too forced. "You made it after all. We weren't sure you'd get away from that office of yours." I don't smile. I don't even acknowledge the faux warmth in his tone. "Did Dr. Rourke confirm the transfer?" I ask, keeping my voice low, but sharp. I need to know. Conrad hesitates for a moment, then forces a grin. "Let's not talk business at a party, sweetheart," he says, the smile not reaching his eyes. I don't flinch. "It's not business, Conrad. It's Ronan's treatment. $210,000. Did you send it?" Vivica steps in then, her laughter high-pitched, dismissive. "Oh, that?" she says with a wave of her champagne glass. "We decided not to pursue that particular treatment. Fresh air and sunshine are better than some risky procedure. The world feels like it's shifting beneath me, a rush of panic filling my chest." "You decided." My voice comes out strangled, barely a whisper. "That money was in a trust. Vivica. For Ronan's care." She tilts her head, condescending. "The boy needs normal experiences, not needles and hospital beds. A boat is what he needs. That's real therapy." I feel my hands tremble, fists clenching at my sides. "You used his treatment money for this," I whisper, the anger rising in my throat, threatening to spill over. "You used his future to buy this." Conrad's expression darkens, and he steps forward, the facade of celebration cracking. "Let's not ruin the party. Elise. Come on. Don't make this into a scene." But I'm already turning away from them, scanning the crowd once more. My eyes find Ronan again, standing alone, watching us from a distance, his face pale, his hands trembling. For a moment, I want to rush to him, to yell, to demand he stand up, to demand he fight back. But he doesn't. He just looks away, like he's already given up. He made his choice. And now I'll make mine. The boat may have been their promise, but I won't let them break us again. The morning after the party, I sat in my office, surrounded by spreadsheets and digital records. The glow of my monitor, cutting through the hangover of champagne and betrayal. My fingers moved automatically, pulling up financial statements for the Callahan Trust. tracing every transaction from the past 6 months. I didn't need to be an auditor to see it. The money was gone. VSC Holdings, I whispered to myself, eyes narrowing at the shell company name that appeared on every withdrawal tied to Ronan's treatment fund. Camille leaned against the doorway before I even noticed she was there. Her usual calm replaced by concern. "You look like you've been awake for a week," she said, setting her coffee down on my desk. I didn't look up. My father and Vivica rerouted the medical trust through a front company. They used it to buy that damn boat. Camille exhaled slowly, like she already knew this would be the answer. "Avery, if you go after them publicly, they'll burn you alive. They control the narrative." I met her gaze, voice steady. "Then I'll bring gasoline." She moved closer, lowering her voice. "You can't just accuse them without proof. You need a strategy." I turned the screen toward her, highlighting the offshore transfer logs. "Here's the proof. Every transfer links back to Vivica's digital signature. They didn't even try to hide it." Camille's expression hardened, lawyer mode taking over. "If you're right, this isn't just theft. It's wire fraud, and they'll do anything to keep it buried." I closed the laptop with a soft click. Let them try. I'm done playing their version of family. By noon, I drafted an email to Conrad. Polite but lethal. I laid out the account numbers, the missing funds, the dates, and the demand for restitution within 48 hours. I hit send, watching the small paper plane icon vanish across the screen. For a moment, the room felt still, my pulse matching the slow hum of the fluorescent lights. Then the response came 15 minutes later, short and rehearsed. "We'll discuss this privately, sweetheart. Don't overreact." That afternoon, my corporate ID access was revoked. When I arrived the next morning, security wouldn't let me through the lobby. "You've been placed on administrative leave," the guard said, eyes avoiding mine. The official email came an hour later, citing concerns regarding mental stability. I sat in my car in the parking garage, gripping the steering wheel, laughter bubbling up despite the fury twisting in my chest. They'd made their first move. Fine. Let them believe I was fragile. I was about to show them what fragile looks like when it fights back. It was past midnight when the pounding on my apartment door started, sharp and rhythmic like the crack of gunfire. Before I could even reach the handle, the door burst open, and blinding light filled the room. Voices overlapped, commands shouted, footsteps stomping across hardwood. "Avery Callahan." Step away from the bed. Hands where we can see them. A hand gripped my arm. Another pushed me to the floor. Cold metal biting into my wrists. My cheek pressed against the wood as I gasped. "What the hell is happening?" The officer crouched beside me, calm and procedural. "We received a 911 call from a family member. You texted your brother saying you bought a gun and plan to end it all tonight." The words didn't register at first. They sounded foreign, fabricated, like a bad movie script. "That's a lie," I said, twisting against the cuffs. "I never sent that message. I don't even own a gun." The officer showed me his phone. The message displayed on the screen, my name glowing above it. My stomach turned cold. "Someone spoofed my number," I said, the realization slicing through the chaos. "Someone set me up." He didn't answer, just motioned to the paramedics waiting in the hall. "Ma'am, for your safety and others, we need to take you in for evaluation." I wanted to fight, to scream, but every instinct told me to stay calm. They wanted a scene. I wouldn't give it to them. The psychiatric ward smelled like bleach and resignation. Fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, reflecting off white tile floors that looked too clean to be real. They took everything at intake: my phone, my wallet, my belt, and handed me a set of paper scrubs that barely fit. The nurse processing me had kind eyes but the tired posture of someone who'd seen too much. "You'll be evaluated by Dr. Reeves in the morning," she said softly. "Just stay calm." I nodded, forcing a steady breath. But inside, my mind was already running calculations. Who called? What digital trail they left? How to dismantle it piece by piece? When Dr. Reeves entered the next morning, clipboard in hand, I was ready. He spoke gently, measured. "Your family is very concerned about you. Ms. Callahan. Your father said you've been under severe stress." I smiled faintly. "Stress doesn't make me suicidal, doctor. It makes me efficient." He looked at me carefully, clicking his pen. Sometimes, when people are overwhelmed, they don't realize how close they are to a breaking point. I leaned forward slightly, my voice calm. "Did my father also tell you he stole $210,000 from my brother's medical trust?" The pen froze midair. "No," he said slowly. "He didn't mention that." For 3 days, I endured the endless hum of fluorescent light and the muffled sobs of strangers. I answered every question with precision, each word deliberate, knowing everything was recorded. When he asked if I had regrets, I said only, "Yes. I regret trusting the wrong people." On the morning of my release, they handed me back my belongings in a plastic bag. My phone was dead, but when I turned it on, a flood of messages appeared, some from Camille. Frantic, others from numbers I didn't recognize. I ignored them all. As I stepped into the sunlight outside, the air hit different, sharper, colder, like a warning. A man in a cheap suit was waiting by the curb, envelope in hand. "Avery Callahan?" he asked. I nodded once, wary. "You've been served," he said, placing the document in my hand before walking away. The seal at the top read Times, "Petition for conservatorship of the estate **." My father's signature was right below it, alongside Vivica's. They'd tried to lock me away and failed. Now they were coming for my freedom on paper. I looked down the empty street, the sun glaring off the glass buildings, and whispered to myself, "They really want a war." Then I smiled, because they had just declared one. Camille's office smelled like burnt coffee and adrenaline when I walked in, the manila envelope still clutched in my hand. She didn't need me to speak. One look at my face and she already knew. "They moved fast," she said, taking the papers from me, scanning them with clinical precision. "Petition for conservatorship. They're claiming you're mentally unfit to manage your assets." I laughed, sharp and humorless. So the psychiatric stunt was just the dress rehearsal. Now they want to own me on paper. Camille's jaw tightened as she slid the documents across the desk. "Then we use it. Let them think they're winning. Let them file every affidavit, every forged document. We'll bury them in their own lies." She leaned forward, tapping her pen against the legal pad. "We need to collect everything: emails, IP addresses, signatures. Build the case from the inside out." I sat down across from her, feeling the familiar pulse of control return. "You're suggesting we wait, watch them build the cage before we spring it." Her smile was small but dangerous. "Exactly. We let them walk right into a federal trap." I met her gaze, a spark of understanding forming between us. "You want them to commit perjury." Camille nodded slowly. "I want them to hand me evidence under oath." That night, I sat at my kitchen table with the lights off, watching my reflection in the glass. The city glowed behind me, sharp and indifferent. My phone buzzed, an email from my father's lawyer. "Marcus Aldridge. Asterisk. We'd like to resolve this privately before the hearing." Asterisk. I typed my response carefully. Asterisk. "See you in court." Asterisk. Then I powered off my phone and stared out at the skyline. My heartbeat finally steady. Somewhere in their glass estate, I imagined Vivica pouring herself a glass of wine, practicing her victim voice in the mirror while Charles rehearsed his fatherly concern. They believed their performance would work again. They didn't realize the stage lights had changed, that the audience this time would wear badges instead of pearls. Camille called me the next morning. "I've already contacted Agent Holloway from the bureau," she said, her tone calm but edged with fire. "He's seen cases like this before: family fraud, identity theft, forged medical claims. They think they're untouchable because it's domestic. But once federal funds are involved, it's wire fraud." I exhaled slowly. "Then it's not family drama anymore. It's a federal crime scene." She smiled through the line. "Exactly. So here's what we do. You go quiet. No statements. No public defense. Nothing. Let them feel safe." I stared out the window as traffic roared below, the weight of her words settling in my chest. "We let them relax," I said softly. "And when they finally exhale, we tighten the noose." For the first time in weeks, I slept without nightmares. The plan wasn't revenge, it was reconstruction. Logic built from ruin. They wanted to destroy me with paperwork. They'd never expected I'd fight back with law. The courthouse smelled like old paper and polished wood, the kind of place where truth came second to appearances. I sat at the defendant's table in a plain gray sweater, hair tied back. No makeup. Every inch of me deliberately unremarkable. Across the aisle, Charles and Vivica looked like the portrait of moral authority, him in a dark suit, her in pearls and cream silk, both wearing grief like perfume. Their lawyer, Marcus Aldridge, shuffled his notes with theatrical gravity. "Your Honor," he began, voice soaked in sympathy. "This case is about protecting a daughter from herself." Judge Whitmore adjusted her glasses, expression unreadable. "Proceed." Aldridge gestured toward me, his voice softening as though speaking about a fragile child. "Ms. Callahan has suffered a severe psychological break. The family simply wishes to ensure her estate remains intact until she recovers." I met his gaze, not blinking. Camille sat beside me, playing her part perfectly, nervous, hesitant, the picture of an overmatched attorney. When the judge called Charles to the stand, he took his time, looking downcast as he swore in. "My daughter's always been brilliant," he said, pausing just long enough to let the room lean in. "But lately, she's been unstable. She accused us of theft, of unimaginable things. Then there was the hospital she was taken in under a suicide risk." I could hear whispers ripple through the courtroom, the manufactured sympathy doing its work. Camille didn't interrupt. She let him talk, every lie adding weight to the rope he didn't know he was tying. When it was Vivica's turn, she looked angelic in the witness chair. Her voice trembled at the right syllables, tears perfectly placed. "I love Avery like my own, but she's been erratic. She smashed glasses at a family event, screamed about money, threatened to ruin her brother's recovery." Her hand fluttered toward her chest. "We're terrified she'll hurt herself or us." The gallery nodded along, pity blooming in predictable waves. Camille stood slowly, eyes down, shuffling papers like a novice. "Mrs. Callahan," she began softly, "you said you used the medical fund for Ronan's recovery." Vivica nodded, relieved to be asked a question she thought she could handle. "Of course. The procedure was experimental, dangerous. We decided instead to use the funds for his emotional well-being." Camille looked up, feigning confusion. "You mean the yacht?" Vivica smiled faintly. "The silver promise brings him joy. Isn't that a kind of therapy?" Camille nodded, seemingly agreeing. "So, under oath, You're confirming that you used a charitable medical fund to purchase a private boat. Vivica blinked. It wasn't like that. Camille's tone hardened. That's exactly what it was. The air changed. The quiet murmur of the gallery dimmed into silence as Camille straightened to her full height. The hesitant act vanished. Your Honor? She said clearly. We move to dismiss this petition immediately on the grounds that the petitioners are attempting to obtain conservatorship over assets obtained through federal crimes. Aldridge shot up from his chair. Objection. The judge raised a hand, silencing him. Camille opened her laptop, and a screen flickered to life behind the bench. Let's walk through the evidence. She clicked once, and IP logs appeared. Here are login records from Ms. Callahan's health insurance portal. Every unauthorized access originated from the Callahan estate's IP address. Another click revealed bank statements. And here deposits totaling $40,000 from fraudulent insurance reimbursements. Each transfer linked to a shell company, VSC Holdings, registered under Vivica Sterling's maiden name. Vivica's face drained of color, the confident mask collapsing as whispers erupted through the courtroom. Camille turned to the judge. We've provided this evidence to the Bureau. Agent Holloway is present in court. A man in a gray suit rose quietly from the back row, flashing his badge. The shift in the room was immediate. The power dynamic flipped in a heartbeat. The judge's voice cut through the noise, cold and precise. Petition denied with prejudice. Her gavel hit once, the sound echoing like a gunshot. Agent Holloway. Proceed. Two agents moved toward the plaintiff's table. Charles half rose, sputtering. You can't do this. An agent's hand pressed him gently back down. Sir, you're under arrest for wire fraud, insurance theft, and perjury. Vivica tried to stand but froze when the cuffs clicked around her wrists. This is a mistake, she cried. The judge didn't even look up. As they were let out, cameras flashed from the hallway. Reporters shouting questions. I sat still, my pulse steady, my breathing even. Camille closed her laptop and whispered. They walked into their own grave. I turned toward the gallery, meeting the eyes of people who had once pitied me. No, I said quietly, more to myself than anyone else. They built it. Outside, the sun was blinding. The courthouse steps were crowded with journalists. The Callahan's downfall already making headlines. I didn't stop for questions. I didn't look back. For the first time in years, the wait was gone. Justice. It turned out, didn't need fury, it needed patience sharpened into precision. The courthouse emptied like the aftermath of a storm. The echo of the gavel still pulsing in my ears as I stepped into the blinding afternoon sun. Reporters shouted my name, microphones flashing like insects. But I kept walking until the noise thinned into the sound of wind off the lake. By the time I reached the parking lot, the adrenaline had turned to exhaustion. That's when I saw him, Ronan, leaning against a taxi, his cane trembling in one hand, his face pale and thinner than I remembered. He limped toward me, the afternoon light cutting across his tired features. Avery. Please, he said, his voice cracking. I didn't know about the shell companies. Mom said it was just reallocation. I stared at him, every word scraping against the memory of what he'd chosen. You knew enough to stay silent, I said evenly. You knew they were lying and you let them. You let them steal what could have saved you. His eyes filled, not with guilt, but with fear. I was scared. They said if I told you, you'd ruin everything. They said you'd turn on me. I almost laughed at the irony. They were right about one thing, I said. I'm done saving people who hand me the knife. He reached for my arm, but I stepped back, the distance between us more final than any sentence a judge could deliver. Where will I go? He asked softly, voice trembling like a child's. They're gone. Avery. Everything's gone. I met his gaze for a long moment, feeling the weight of every promise I'd ever made in that hospital room years ago. You'll figure it out, I said. That's what growing up without illusions looks like. He blinked, tears catching the light, but I was already walking away. The lake shimmered behind the courthouse, quiet and deceptively peaceful. I stopped by the dock where a weathered buoy floated, sunlight bouncing off the water like fragments of glass. In my pocket was the spare key to the Silver Promise, the last relic of their lies. I turned it over in my hand, feeling its weight, metal and memory fused together. They built their empire on theft, I murmured, and drowned in it. Then I threw the key as far as I could. It hit the surface with a soft plunk, vanishing beneath the ripples. The water closed over it in seconds, erasing the evidence, leaving only stillness behind. I stood there until the wind picked up, tugging at my coat, carrying the scent of the lake and the distant hum of traffic. For the first time in years, I didn't feel like I was holding my breath. Freedom didn't sound like applause or vindication, it sounded like silence. My new apartment sat 20 floors above the city, glass walls catching the pulse of Chicago at night. The air smelled like clean slate and quiet electricity, a space that finally belonged only to me. I poured a glass of wine and leaned on the balcony, the hum of traffic below blending into a rhythm that sounded suspiciously like peace. My phone buzzed. Camille's text appeared first. Asterisk. Estate seized. Case closed. Sleep well. Partner in chaos. Asterisk. I smiled, setting the phone down beside my journal. I opened the notebook, the page still blank except for the date day 1. The pen felt lighter in my hand than it had in months. They said I'd crumble without them. I whispered to the skyline, the city lights blinking back like an audience that already knew the ending. Turns out, I just needed them gone. A new message lit the screen. Ronan's name. Asterisk. Can we talk? Asterisk. I stared at it for a long moment, the glass cold against my fingers. Then I typed slowly. Asterisk. I wish you well. I'm not available. The wind swept through the open balcony, rustling the pages of my journal as I closed it. For the first time in years, the story wasn't about survival, it was about beginning. Thank you for watching till the end. If this story moved you, hit subscribe. Share it with someone who still believes kindness can't be broken, and tell me where you're watching from. Your voice keeps our stories alive.